Hey everybody, welcome to our second episode on AI direction of this, our newly minted, christened, and created Ember Sword podcast. I'm once again joined by Loren, and this time's topic is going to be challenge matching. Now, I am very in the dark as to what this is, so this is going to be insightful for me as well. So Loren, welcome again, and what is challenge matching?
Thank you, Svetlin. Well, I think, you may be less in the dark than you initially thought, largely because on the last podcast you kind of referred to Left 4 Dead, if you remember that segment. Yeah, exactly. And actually, when it comes to challenge matching, the challenge matching part of our AI director, of our AI game master, is actually very much like the kind of AI director that was in Left 4 Dead. So I don't know if you played Left 4 Dead, but
I played a crap ton of Left 4 Dead. So for those not in the know, Left 4 Dead's AI direction got a whole bunch of praise when it came out around, what was it, 08, 09? Because the AI director was very much concerned with giving you the most dynamic and interesting experience possible. In Left 4 Dead's case in particular, if I remember correctly, it was essentially, it was taking stock of where the players were, what their ammo level was like, what their health level was like, and what the environment around them looked like. And then it decided what enemy to spawn. So sometimes when you were like full of ammo and you were trudging through an open field, just a cavalcade of zombies, a smorgasbord, a flood. I think that's Bungie trademark, but anyway, a flood of zombies. Yeah, I've heard of Halo, haven't played it. I have heard of Halo, though. So a veritable flood of zombies would rush at you just to spice things up, make it interesting. And while you're dealing with that flood of zombies, right, that's the beginning of the encounter. Let's say there's a train nearby, a train car. On top of that train car, a smoker would spawn, and it would yoink somebody who's at the back of the pack who's not paying too much attention. So through this snowball effect almost, Left 4 Dead created incredibly memorable moments by purely generating them. Like, they weren't scripted, it was just a very well written piece of software that made your experience awesome. So that's why I brought up Left 4 Dead in relation to AI direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that is exactly sort of the interesting part of what they were doing, right? I mean, typically, rather than sort of creating a preset setup and hoping that it will be exciting for people somehow every single time, which of course it isn't, because typically you've got these kind of linear experiences where sure, you'll feel good about having gotten a lot better at beating this particular challenge or this particular level, right? But let's say that smoker, which by the way, for those who didn't play Left 4 Dead, was like an enemy with a really long sort of tongue that would literally just reach out like 50 meters, pull like a player out of the group, and kind of just restrain them, if you will, and pull them into their location, which of course meant that all the other players had to like jump in and help out before this poor guy was sort of absconded and killed.
Absconded, my favorite $5 word.
In any case, so the thing is, if you just statically place that smoker on top of that train, the second time you play that level, everyone would know what to expect. Everyone would shoot him in the face the moment they got around the corner, right? And thus it would not be very exciting. You would not get that peak moment again of having your buddy yoinked away from you at the worst possible moment, and then kind of having to, thread and stumble over zombies and knock things out of the way in order to save him before he
waste your precious chainsaw fuel, just the worst.
Yeah, exactly. Don't want to waste that precious chainsaw fuel. That was actually Left 4 Dead 2, I believe, right? When the
I hate using resources so much, man. I hoard.
Just use your trusty shovel for everything or something. Smack him in the face. You can do it. It's only 100 zombies.
It is, but it's free.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you would in Left 4 Dead, of course, basically get into a closet, put your back into it, right, and just smack one zombie at a time. No, there's no space. This closet is already full. Get your own closet.
The Lemmings approach to dynamic FPSs.
Yeah, exactly. Which, by the way, also played a ton of Left 4 Dead, of course, and really enjoyed that. And I thought, that they did that so well, particularly also with the notion that they managed to do it in such a way that it's not obvious, right?
Yeah.
It's not like suddenly an enemy appears. No, they got the pacing. There's sound effects that kind of announce that an enemy is in the area, and then suddenly, oh, there he is, but not in such a way that he just popped into place, right?
Right.
And that is really cool. It's sort of kind of the AI director busied itself with everything that was not happening on the player screen, the stuff the players couldn't see. There, the AI director was at work making the experience more epic and ensuring sort of these peak experiences. And I think that's really awesome also because of sort of the challenge level versus skill kind of balance, right?
Yeah.
Where if you're if you want your players to have a really epic experience, you should kind of balance the challenge that they get with their skill. And typically anything linear doesn't quite do that. The best you can do is like yank up the difficulty level, right?
Right.
But that's hugely problematic because we're in an MMO. I mean, you could yank up the difficulty level of an instanced raid, but you cannot yank up the difficulty level of the outside world. Some poor level 3 schmuck is gonna run into that and get absolutely murdered. So we need to be very smart about it, and that's kind of what we're doing with our challenge matching. So what we're basically doing there is, as you as an individual player or group of players are engaging in combat, we basically are bringing on challenging opponents exactly based on sort of the situation that you're in, that fit with that situation, fit with that environment, and also at the same time offer you the kind of challenge level that you as a group are up for.
Right.
It's got to be something that'll give you a sort of on the tips of your toes experience. That's just very gratifying and that makes you feel great that you made it through. And then obviously, we should also make sure that we reward you sufficiently for the challenge level that you have bested.
Right. Well, just to utilize the Left 4 Dead comparison in some way, not just nerd out about it, I think I gave a pretty decent explanation of how the AI director handles, challenge in Left 4 Dead. How does our system differ from that?
Right. So I would say it does not necessarily differ a lot immediately on how it handles the challenge level, right? Because similar to Left 4 Dead, it is deciding to bring new enemies into combat and so on and so forth. But we do have like a unique advantage because of being sort of this isometric game. Right? If players are looking all around them, like, just 360 first person, there's not a lot of places players cannot see. And so, what Left 4 Dead sometimes struggled with was maybe enemies appearing and kind of getting spotted and it, kind of breaking sort of this fourth wall of, I see what you did there. You tricked us.
That humongous muscular man just sort of phased out of the wall.
Yeah, exactly.
My scary time is ruined.
Yeah, exactly. So there's basically two things we're doing to avoid that, sort of horrible fourth wall breaking experience, which are kind of unique to the way our game works. One is obviously that we've got our AI Game Master tracking which areas are visible to players, which is very, very clear with, an isometric game.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of areas where no single player, not one player, can see what's going on there because it's just not on their screen. So first of all, when we bring in enemies, we can bring them in a place where it's absolutely certain that nobody saw them spawn. Yeah. Of course, we let you in on the secret now, but, please forget about this when you're playing Ember Sword. It'll make your experience so much more fun.
Turn your brain off just slightly, not too much. It's going to be challenging.
Yeah, I'm kind of like being a very bad magician here, sort of, explaining the trick before I'm even showing you. So, don't let it take too much away from your enjoyment. But it is a very unique thing that we're doing there. And then the second part is, of course, you cannot just have like hordes of enemies rushing in for no reason. And that's
Right.
also something where we can do some rather unique things because one, unlike let's say Left 4 Dead, our world is much more dynamic, and we can actually generate things like buildings and campfires and stuff on the fly. So we can also spawn those in places that players can't see. So actually, as player combat heads sort of in, let's say, a northeastern direction, right? Just a little bit further northeast, we can spawn a camp full of gruffs that that are just hanging out there, and the players will be like, "Oh shit, we just ran this combat into a giant camp full of gruffs," and they don't look happy to see us, right? So that's on the one hand what we can do, right? So it'll make it much more engaging and much more interesting, and then we can do things with that camp in turn. And the other thing that we've got going for ourselves is that unlike something like Left 4 Dead, we have our cinematic combat AI going on about what's on your screen. Right. So actually we can relate what's on your screen to what's going to happen off of it. And this gives us, for example, the ability to not just have like 15 wolves rush in, but we can actually have the alpha wolf on screen let out this enormous howl, calling for help, and then hordes of wolves starts rushing in, right? And so this creates this really epic, credible experience where, there's actually a foreboding, there's sort of an omen of, oh shit, reinforcements are on the way, everybody, batten down the hatches, chug down a couple of potions, this is gonna get interesting, right? It's that kind of thing.
So it not only creates challenge overall on a macro scale by, planning out the encounters in terms of what the party's doing, but also thanks to our micro level, system, our cinematic combat, it can create more memorable, cool looking moments dynamically as well.
Yeah,
a lot of games lack.
It's tie-ins, it's tie-ins. Yeah. It's a creature running for help. Stuff like that you just would not see normally in a game. And if you do see it in a game, you would see that in a great, beautifully scripted first-person shooter, where every time you get into that mission, the guy goes like, "Oh shit, a tank! I'll go get." I'll go get reinforcements. Like, cover me, right? And he's running off, right?
Right.
But that is not something I don't think you've ever seen like in a game where it just dynamically decides, oh shit, a tank is coming in, I'd better run away and get support, and then that same creature coming back with like a giant boss or mini boss guy that's like, oh, you came and assaulted my clan, you came and assaulted my tribe, now I'm gonna have your skulls for this.
Yeah, this is also a great solution to fatigue, because I play a decent bit of games where repetition is key, most notably, and I apologize, dear listener, Destiny 2, of which I have over 700 hours because I have a crack addiction. Destiny has sort of it thrives on repetition, but the minutia of it, where there's also an AI director system there in place that shuffles enemy placements a bit, shuffles types of enemies, big enemies, big like encounter heavy, like very well designed enemies like bosses, mini bosses, and things like that. Those are always static, but still, it lends itself to a very interesting experience just because it has that dash of dynamicness. So in terms of Ember Sword, it sounds genuinely incredibly interesting that everything is going to be those special moments where you come across something unexpected.
Yeah, exactly. I think it very much goes with sort of our philosophy that, so much of building a great game is just bringing these moments of surprise to the players, right? Where you're just genuinely delighted that you saw that happen. And,
oh, yeah.
I think probably all of us remember some moments in some video game where, and this goes through the decades, right? As a gamer, having played so many of these games, right? Through the decades, as gaming has improved, there's always been, in this next game that you play, this moment where you're like, oh shit, did that really just happen? Oh, that is epic, right? And, most of the time, those are pre-scripted moments, just, straight out of the box. And, we just felt it would be so great to be basically creating those on the fly for players, which is, such a huge boon when you have, such a large world to fill with experiences.
Right. And then, of course, with increased challenge and challenges that are constantly varying, what is the reward system going to look like for those?
Yeah, so the other thing that actually I think Left 4 Dead did a little bit and really well, and interestingly so, was also spawning items. I don't know if you were aware of this, but actually for example, the medkit cabinets that you find in Left 4 Dead, those are actually and specifically their contents are decided upon by the AI director. So it'll actually see that, you got 4 players that are like borderline dead, and it'll intentionally put like 3 bloody medkits in the cabinet.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my god, you're right.
Let's see them solve this one.
How to end friendships. Thanks, Valve.
Exactly. I'm pretty sure like some lifelong friendships have ended on like, a Left 4 Dead medkit. You bastard, I needed that. But yeah, so this is the same ability we have, of course, as an MMO, with item drops being basically based on what that AI game master has figured into it, right? And with Ember Sword having truly unique items, even particularly on like the cosmetics range and such, this kind of also means that our AI game master can kind of be coordinating this, this battle to a culmination, and then, deciding, wow, these guys did really well. They just went through an epic experience. I know kind of what the crowd is that's here. I know what their skills are. I know thus what item would at least be usable for one member of this party, right? Has this person recently received anything cool? No? Well, maybe we're going to give him this particularly awesome sword cosmetic. And, actually in this case, it's, it's less of a friendship breaker, and actually the AI trying to be really smart about it, so that even, if it can, it'll drop something that'll be particularly nice for one particular player in the group, and then make it very logical for that player to then, get that awesome reward. And of course, it being like, let's say 1 in 1,000 of that cosmetic to ever spawn for that particular sword, makes it just all the more epic that you can say that you've capped off this extremely awesome, combat adventure that you've had with retrieving this epic sword.
That touches my heart, because again, I play a decent bit of loot heavy games, and in my experience, when somebody from my party gets something like really, really good, I am incredibly happy for them, because that means my experience is going to get better, right? Whether it be them being happier that they have a brand new cosmetic that they really like, or a very useful item that they can use in gameplay.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll probably see this, but this is more of a general note that rather than being quite the total item shower that some games are, looking at you, Diablo. No, I mean, awesome game, of course, but with Ember Sword, we're of course talking about items that have a lot more tangible value, so it's also going to be more of a quest, to get something that epic, right? You might, at the end of the rainbow might be a chest with one really epic item in it, and it's going to be worth all the struggle over the last 20 minutes, rather than, my inventory is now full and I can barely walk my way back into town to sell all the useless crap that I found and hopefully keep like the one item that made any sense.
Right. Well, I'm pretty sure we've covered everything we wanted to cover on challenge matching and how the system works. We're using very colorful and weirdly offbeat, barely related tangents. But I do believe we got through that, what we're trying to do with, creating a decent challenge for players. So next up, we're going to be talking about dynamic adventures. And that is coming to you soon. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time. Hear you next time, damn it. Ah, close. Hey you made it to the end. Congratulations! That must mean you like us enough to want more, right? Well, good news! We're all over the internet. Go to embersword.com and subscribe to our newsletter for a chance to play the game early, as well as the latest interesting tidbits on the game and the team. Join our lovely Discord community over at discord.gg/embersword. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at PlayEmberSword for regular updates on what we're up to. And remember the basics. drink water, be kind to each other, and spread the word about Ember Sword.
I am now recording the epicness that is about to ensue.
You don't
Give me a
even
moment
know.
to close this. Oh yeah, no, I don't even know, like, the epicness that is going to take place shortly, you know? There's, like, shit gonna burst into this room. With explosions in Michael Bay.
This is going at the end of the podcast, you know that, right?